From seemingly low-rent genre films which delivered a damn fun time, to almost hilariously robust entries to long-in-the-tooth franchises, and everything in between. These movies all turned out so much better than anyone expected. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 10 recent movies nobody expected to be good. Number 10, Plane. Look, it's a movie called Plane starring Gerard Butler and the bloke from Luke Cage, aka Mike Coulter, with the trailer giving off distinct "this should have been a streaming film" vibes. How good could it possibly be? Yet as much as Plane was a meme long before it came out, the end product is precisely the sort of modest meat and potato genre film we desperately need more of these days. Indeed, nobody's gonna see a movie called Plane for a nuanced meditation on the human condition. But this gamey action thriller benefits considerably from the entertaining two-hander between Butler and Coulter, its snappy pace and slew of tense, well-staged set pieces. If dad thrillers tend to be a point of mockery for both critics and audiences, Plane proved that when the ingredients are all there, a fun high-concept, well-matched leads and loony action, they can be unpretentiously joyous. That it ended up receiving better reviews than many of the year's most anticipated blockbusters is absolutely shocking in the best way. Number 9, Saw X. Considering that the number of good movies with the letter X in the title can basically be counted on one hand, it was reasonable to have basement-level expectations for the 10th Saw movie. 10 of them! Plus, accepting that the series' last remotely decent entry was 2009's Saw 6, and the two previous Saw movies marked woefully desperate attempts to jolt the franchise back to life, it would have been outright naive to expect much from a prequel set between the first two Saws. Yet props to director Kevin Groydert, who tellingly also helmed Saw 6, for finally giving fans another worthy entry, one with an unexpectedly well-developed dramatic core, in turn providing Tobin Bell with a ripe opportunity to flex his mighty acting chops. The traps certainly aren't among the series' most imaginative, but Groydert lets loose with the gnarly gore fans expect, while focusing on telling a solid story rather than tying himself in knots in the pursuit of a jaw-dropping plot twist. That the 10th Saw movie ended up being the best reviewed to date, the only one to receive a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes even, is an outcome nobody could have ever seen coming. Number 8, Gran Turismo. Though Hollywood has certainly been showing video games greater respect in recent years, the likelihood of anyone producing a worthwhile adaptation of the Gran Turismo franchise was still meager at best. Then when the film was announced to be based on the true story of a teenage Gran Turismo player who became a pro racer for real, and the directing reins were given to Neil Blomkamp of all folk, it was tough to expect anything above mere mediocrity. But fair play to Blomkamp. The man took the assignment seriously and in turn delivered a surprisingly engaging, visually breathtaking sports flick elevated by the efforts of a strong cast. Archie Madekwe makes for a supremely likable lead, though the show is categorically stolen by David Arbor, whose impressively committed performance as the GT Academy's head trainer Jack Salter keeps the pick chugging along through even its more predictable phases. You certainly know where the story's going, yet for as goofy as the premise of a gamer becoming a real-life racer sounds on paper, Blomkamp and his cast managed to keep it tethered firmly to the ground. Number 7, Megan. The marketing for Blumhouse's horror film Megan didn't make it crystal clear precisely how in on the joke the filmmakers were, and so it seemed like the best this could hope for was being a campy, sub-child's play stab into the killer doll subgenre. Yet within mere moments of the movie starting, it's howlingly clear that Megan understands precisely what it is, and is keenly committed to delivering a riotous romp to that end. Even accepting its regrettably sanitized PG-13 content rating, this is at once a deliciously deranged satire of modern tech conveniences and soulless corporate culture, and a shamelessly silly movie about a murderously protective AI-powered doll. It's also extremely well made, with a canny combination of practical puppetry and shrewdly implemented VFX, bringing Megan to impressive life considering the mere $12 million budget, while Alison Williams and Violet McGraw additionally give legitimately compelling dramatic performances. It would have shocked no one if Megan was a critically panned box office smash, but it managed to have its cake and eat it too, raking in over $180 million worldwide amid enthusiastic reviews from the press and audiences alike. Number 6. Blackberry. Look, we all love Glenn Howerton and Jay Baruchel, but when it was announced that the pair were starring in a dramatization of Blackberry's rise and fall, and it wasn't a parody of the spate of corporate biopics released in recent years, many were understandably bemused. This was a film nobody asked for and had all the makings of one that ultimately nobody would be interested in. And yet against considerable odds, filmmaker Matt Johnson made the story of the Blackberry phone a compulsively engaging one. Johnson has a few aces up his sleeve here. First, there's the movie's slippery tone, pinballing between sly comedy and genuine drama, but never quite going overboard in either respect. Then there's the gorgeous roving docu-style camera work, and best of all, a genuinely awards-worthy performance from Howerton as Blackberry's eccentric early investor Jim Balsillie. That Blackberry ended up one of the best reviewed films of the entire year is something not a single solitary soul could have predicted. Number 5. Thanksgiving. It's fair to say that most fans of Eli Roth's 2007 fake trailer for Thanksgiving, released as part of Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's Grindhouse double bill project, had long given up hope of the planned full feature ever getting made. Let alone actually turning out well, Roth ended up quietly shooting the film earlier this year, before it was marketed on a muted wave of anticipation, and TriStar Pictures ultimately decided to hold reviews until just 2 days before release. No good signs here. And on top of all this, Roth is a maddeningly inconsistent filmmaker, with as many duds to his name as hits. But Thanksgiving was ultimately almost exactly the movie it needed to be. A giddily self-aware slice of well-made schlock, which turned in precisely the brutal gore, black comedy, and sensational satire that original trailer promised 16 damn years ago. It would have surprised nobody if Roth's latest was a pure Thanksgiving turkey, but he evidently understood the assignment and delivered accordingly. Number 4. Elemental. Elemental is a film that arrived on a wave of negative hype pre-release, with its utterly lackluster trailers suggesting a strangely generic by-the-numbers animated romp from Pixar. And while it certainly doesn't rank among their very finest work, this is far from the Cars 2 level disaster many were expecting. Elemental is a gorgeously animated, totally rock-solid middle-tier offering from the studio. In a year where so much of Disney's output has fallen disappointingly flat, Elemental was actually one of their few wins, bolstered by its affecting, family-focused narrative and outstanding ensemble voice cast. The fact that nobody expected it to be any good is perhaps best reflected, however, in its shockingly leggy box office performance. After opening below projections in its first weekend on release, positive word of mouth, including an A cinema score, led it to gross almost $500 million worldwide. Though not one of Pixar's biggest hits or even best movies, that's quite the turnaround for a film many had written off as a catastrophic bomb after its opening weekend. Number 3. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. The low expectations for Guy Ritchie's The Covenant weren't so much a result of questioning Ritchie's talent, but him seemingly being totally unsuited for a serious-minded war film. Given that the director's career is largely defined by blokey crime comedies, there was a perception that he'd struggle to rein his cheeky instincts in and land the sort of tone needed for this movie to work. But what a pleasant surprise it was that The Covenant is ultimately so unlike anything Ritchie has produced before, enough that one can scarcely believe he actually made it, without even a hint of snark. The Covenant is an earnest, dead serious war film with a genuinely jolting emotional core, boasting sharp visuals and 2 excellent performances from Jake Gyllenhaal and Dar Salim. Few believed Ritchie capable of such comparatively restrained, sober filmmaking, which combined with MGM's weak marketing campaign for the movie, suggested they most likely had a dud on their hands. Though The Covenant flopped at the box office, in large part due to that pathetic aforementioned marketing, one suspects it's gonna have a long tail on streaming. Number 2. No Hard Feelings. The marketing for No Hard Feelings painted it as a rather quaint throwback to 90s comedies, basically the sort that don't get made today, for better or worse, and certainly never get theatrically released. For many, this seemed less like a crackling comeback for Jennifer Lawrence after stepping back from the limelight for a few years, and more an easy, low-stress paycheck role following years of high-profile, high-concept genre films and awards-baiting prestige fare. But you know what? No Hard Feelings was a damn riot, and that's in large part due to Lawrence's boldly go-for-broke performance. Even ignoring her instantly legendary nude fight scene in the film, Lawrence hurls herself headlong into the role of a financially destitute 30-something woman who accepts a job romancing a socially awkward 19-year-old. Beyond being gut-bustingly funny, Lawrence's performance also finds pathos through her chemistry with co-star Andrew Barth Feldman, ensuring this is a film as boldly raunchy and edgy as it is surprisingly heartfelt. And number 1, Peter Pan and Wendy. Was anyone really asking for yet another live-action Peter Pan movie? In the last 20 years alone, we've had 4 major Peter Pan adaptations / reimaginings / spin-offs, none of which succeeded both critically and commercially. So why go there again? Furthermore, with Disney sending Peter Pan and Wendy direct to Disney+, it seemed to indicate the Mouse House didn't have too much faith in it either, much like the terrible recent Tom Hanks starring Pinocchio adaptation. Yet under the singular guidance of filmmaker David Lowery, this turned out to be a surprisingly soulful and evocative retelling, which dared to make some intriguing and refreshing, if controversial, changes to the source material. If so many of Disney's live-action remakes have looked like plastic sludge, it's such a damn relief to watch one that actually looks like an artist deliberated over every aspect of its visual conception. Not to ignore Jude Law's wonderfully over-the-top performance as Captain Hook too. While certainly not the best of all the Disney remakes, it is one of the few which feels like it actually exists due to artistic inspiration rather than mere corporate obligation. How refreshing.